Alright, this tutorial is going to introduce you to the flipbook option in Sketchbook. So the most important, arguably the most important part of this this interface is choosing the right format. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say New, and I'm going to choose Flipbook. Now it's important to set this up at first because if you set up a sketchbook, a regular sketchbook file, it's going to be very difficult for you to port that over to a flipbook. So I'm going to say Flipbook. And you'll notice that I have two options. I have a new empty flipbook, but I can also bring in a flipbook from an image sequence. And that could be a really good option if you like to draw in Photoshop, but you hate the timeline. So you could actually export something out of Photoshop as an image sequence and then bring that into Sketchbook and have a better timeline to work with. Right now, though, I'm just going to create a new flipbook, empty flipbook. And I'm going to leave it at 24 frames per second. I'm going to leave this at 1280 by 720, which is the size of my screen here, and I'm going to leave the frames at 240. I don't need that many, but I'll just leave it there. I'll just also point out, though, that the maximum amount of frames is 1000, and that's a lot of frames. That's an advantage over, for example, Procreate usually won't let you go that high. So this is a very nice option. So I'm just going to say OK. And you'll notice when I bring this in or open this up, it brings in a timeline. You'll notice also that the layers look a little bit different than what we had in the main interface. So these are my layers. I can't add to them. All right, I've got the foreground, midground, and background, and that's all I've got. I can change the background color if I wanted to do so. I'm going to keep it white so I can see what the heck I'm doing. That is not white. Still not white. Come on. There we go. All right. So I'm on a fairly small screen here. You can certainly arrange your things a little differently. I like to turn off the lagoon, which is this thing down here. So your interface may look a little different the first time you open it, but if you're in the flipbook option, you will always have this timeline. Okay, so the options down here, we're on frame 1, and it shows us our frame numbers up at the top here. I'm on frame 1, and I have some options. I could duplicate a keyframe, which doesn't make sense at the moment because I don't have anything there. I can insert an empty frame, or I can clear the frame. All right, so I'm just going to come in, and I am going to grab a brush. Let me find my puck. There it is. Let me. Oh, that's still my background color. I don't want that. Okay, let's just do that. Okay, there we go. And where is my puck? There it is. This is a disadvantage of working on a fairly small screen. I'm going to make sure my puck is set to a color I want. And now I can come in here and I can draw. All right, so once I have something on the first keyframe, I can choose to duplicate it, or I can choose to add a new keyframe. And I'm going to just insert an empty keyframe, and I am going to go in and draw again. And again, I can add another empty keyframe. I can draw again. And I can keep doing that infinitely until I get my animation done. Now there's two options down here which are helpful. This is often in other programs called onion skinning. Here they call it ghosting. What this means is I can turn on or off the visibility of previous frames. And this is extremely helpful when you're animating. So you can make changes based on, obviously, the frame that went before. If I wanted to, and I needed to see the frames that go ahead, I could turn that on as well. I sometimes find that a little bit confusing if you can't differentiate those by color. So again, I can come in and can add to my beautiful animation. I can also choose to duplicate a keyframe, and that's going to just bring that in exactly the same as the previous frame, but I can then come in and maybe distort it or add to that drawing. All right. So this is pretty basic, standard method of just straight ahead frame by frame animation. Obviously, there's a lot more to play with. I can do anything I want to do here as far as drawing goes. And here we go. And obviously that'll show up in the animation. One nice thing that I really like about working with Sketchbook is that it takes its layers with it. So what I mean by that is if I duplicate this frame and let's say, oops, grab something to draw with. All right, so if I now I've got a foreground and a middle ground. My background, let's put something there too, why not? I have no idea what this animation is. But now I've got a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. If I duplicate this, and let's say I want to go in and I want to change my midground layer, this takes the changes in my layers with it. And that probably won't make much sense unless you've worked with other programs that don't do that. Like Photoshop, if you change a layer, it's going to change it on all your frames. So this is a pretty simple, great tool. So what I would encourage you to do is get in here and play with it a little bit, turn ghosting on and off, play with the different brushes, you know, play with how you like to draw and animate, and just get comfortable with it. And in the next tutorial, I'm going to do a brief tutorial just showing you some of the way I work with it, which might pertain to your projects. And now if I could get the recording to turn off, there we go.